Okay, folks. So my wife and I has just gotten home from seeing Solo, a Star Wars movie, and it was, we've heard all the press of the firing of the directors, Ron Howard taking over, the rumors of the main guy, Alden Heidenreich, or whatever his name is, not doing justice to the character, and the fact that this is another Star Wars movie 5 months after an, the Last Jedi, which a lot of people were divisive on. And I have to say that after sitting down for 2 hours and watching this movie, I freaking loved it. It was true to its heart a Star Wars movie. Now, don't get me wrong, this was not a perfect movie by any means, and there probably isn't any movie that I have seen other than Shawshank Redemption, but this was true to its heart a Star Wars movie. Now, what I mean by that, it had the soul and the charm of everything Star Wars. It had a tight plot, it had a purpose, and it had your simplistic good versus evil. Now, there was a lot more to that, and not every character was played perfectly by their respective actors, but in the end, this had its soul ingrained into Star Wars. Um, and I'll even go back to when I saw episodes 1, 2, and 3, uh, almost 20 years ago now. They were Star Wars movies, but something felt kind of off. And even after watching them many, many times, they've ingrained themselves into Star Wars canon. Uh, Watching episodes 7 and 8, they just do not feel very Star Wars like. They just do not follow the feel of Star Wars. Now, if you watch the Clone Wars, and this is both um, the animated version um, that Jenny Tanakarski did. Sorry if I pronounced his name wrong. And then the follow-up Clone Wars cartoon series that was headed by Dave Filoni. Although they were drastically different from their movies, they still had a Star Wars feel. This is what I mean by Solo, a Star Wars movie. It had the Star Wars feel through and through. And as you watch the movie, and I won't go too spoiler into it, I'll follow it up with a spoiler review and even maybe a discussion if possible. This just felt like Star Wars. And my wife and I, after we watched the movie, and we both saw 7 and 8, after we saw each one of those, we kind of looked at each other and just kind of gave each other a meh. This After 7, we were like, I've seen this before, and after 8, we were like, this just doesn't feel right. Both of us, after watching this one, we looked at each other and said we liked it. And in all honesty, I tried very hard. I went into this movie not wanting to like this movie. From all of the issues with 7 and 8, even the slight issues I have with Rogue One, and I enjoyed Rogue One, to the fact that once again this movie is being released so quickly after Episode 8. I really wanted to go into this movie. I'm expecting it to fail. Um, I sat in a theater with only 10 people, and this is opening night. I'm expecting not to like this movie. I'm expecting to go to work the following day. It's now 2 in the morning Friday. I'm expecting to go into work this morning and tell all my coworkers that this is a horrible movie. I can honestly say I cannot do that. I and it disappoints me even more that as much as I want changes to be made at Disney, I this movie gives me hope that there can be better Star Wars movies out there. Um, to give a quick plot synopsis, we see a young Han Solo. We He's at his home in Corellia. Um, he has to try to escape. He joins the Imperial Army. He meets up with Chewbacca, and he becomes a smuggler. That's all in the preview, so I'm not giving anything away. But it goes from there. The character evolves. In fact, a lot of the characters in the movie evolve, but they stay true to their character. And a lot the in the movie are calls to other things that we may or may not know. Depends on how deep of a Star Wars fan you are. But it's not like a quick, hey, this throwaway line. These are actually part of canonized storylines. And I really, really appreciated those. So in the end, I have to say, it's hard to say one thing because the characters stay true to themselves and to the plot, but in the end, there's a massive, massive surprise, which once it happens, I immediately just sat up and I went, holy crap, we are not done here. Um, this movie is what appeared to be a standalone movie. Um, I'll just go ahead and say it is not. Uh, there should be more coming up. Uh, in fact, it was just, well, I'll put that in another video for later on today. But expect to see more. I don't know of Han Solo um, particularly, but I see more of these type of movies coming up. And I think if Ron Howard had to make these changes, these were changes well warranted. If Lawrence Kasdan felt that uh, Taylor and Miller, or whoever the original directors are, were just not getting it right, I think these guys made the right choice of turning it around because this was a Star Wars movie. In fact, um, I have to say, out of all the Star Wars movies, this will probably be in my top 3 or 4. Obviously, Empire is my number one, um, and if I have to think about what my top ones are, but Solo is definitely in my top 3 or 4. That's how close to it being a Star Wars movie it is. So um, I'm telling everybody now, this Memorial Day weekend, go out and see it. I know I've released movies that this movie's going to fail, and I still feel it will. I was in the theater that only had 10 people. And I'm looking at the seats for over the weekend. It's not looking too good for this movie. But I'm going to ask everybody out there now that comes across this review. If you haven't thought about seeing it, take it from me. Go see this movie. I don't understand what the Rotten Tomato scores are as far as them being so low or anything. I would give it a definite 8 out of 10 if I were to give it a score, or a 4 out of 5, or if I had to give it a grade, definite B plus. Um, and I'll even give a perfect example. Back in the 90s, there was a series called The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, where although we did not have the original actors of Indiana Jones, we had a young, I think Sean Patrick Flannery, playing a young Indiana Jones, and the show to its core felt like a Raiders of the Lost Ark or Temple of Doom or Last Crusade. Definitely not uh, Crystal Skull, but it felt like an Indiana Jones movie. Uh, so anyway, I'm gonna cut this review short for a later, longer review. But please go see this movie. Support this movie because this movie deserves it. Anyway, I'm out of here. Talk to you later. Peace.